Marhaba Kakisa Hoshalbam. The companies of APIKUR are reporting their annual production numbers through their quarterly shareholders meetings, their earnings reports. And production has increased every month since the pipeline was closed in March 2023. But here is the challenge for our companies. The oil that is produced in Iraqi Kurdistan is sold locally to local refineries. And that oil sold locally is sold for about $30 per barrel. We want to resume exports of oil through the Iraq-Turkey pipeline because oil that is sold on the international market at global prices is around $65 to $70 per barrel. So your viewers know, and they can do math, and they understand that selling it locally is not the best way for our companies to earn money and ultimately bring more wealth and prosperity to Iraq. Well, on production, oil, like any other commodity, is produced based on the demands from the consumers. The world is thirsty for oil, and before the pipeline was closed in March 2023, there was more than 400,000 barrels of oil going each day from Kurdistan region through the port at Ceyhan, the Turkish port of Ceyhan. Now that demand is locally for local refineries where the crude oil is turned into gasoline and kerosene and diesel and products that are consumed locally within Kurdistan region. We want the exports to resume, and the international oil companies from APIKUR are always ready to meet with the Kurdistan regional government and the government of Iraq. In fact, there have been several meetings that have happened in the past few months, and we now know that there has been a call from the Ministry of Oil in Baghdad to have another meeting. And we want these meetings to produce results, outcomes. And the things we are looking for are new agreements. And as we have said on your network before, as we have written in press releases, and as we have told the leaders of the government of Iraq and KRG, we have said all of these things many times. We need agreements for sales and lifting. We need to have surety of payment. We need to know that when we put oil into the pipeline, that we will get the money for the oil, but also how to receive the money. There has been some progress in those discussions with the government of Iraq, but we still have to resolve the issue of the international consultant who will come and make an assessment of each oil production site. This international consultant is described in Article 12 of the budget law, the budget amendment that passed, and the consultant is designated by the Ministry of Oil to make an assessment of the oil fields for the production cost and transportation cost. And it is important for APIKUR member companies that we are able to review and participate in the approval of the scope of work of the consultant. This is very technical for everybody watching, but think of it this way. If you ran a business and an outside independent entity needed to come and review the cost of your business, you would want that independent consultant you would want to be able to see how are they going to make this assessment of your cost of business. You would want to know how long will it take them to complete this assessment for your cost of business. So these are some of the very basic things that we are asking for. And what is very important is the companies operating in Kurdistan region should be treated in the same way of the companies in federal Iraq. Our contracts should be respected, and we should have an expectation as producers of what we're expected to produce, when it should go out, the quality that should go out, and the government should have a relationship with us, the government of Iraq and KRG should have a relationship with us that honors our contracts, and we have an expectation of how we will get paid. The production sharing contracts between the international oil companies and Kurdistan regional government are set, they are solid, and they are respected and understood by the government of Iraq. They have been challenged in court, and those courts, the Iraqi courts, the KARK courts, have upheld that the contracts between KRG and international oil companies are valid. Of course, we have been saying this for months. Our contracts are backed up by the London Courts of Arbitration, and we do not think this is an issue. Mm-hmm. Now that we are working toward getting the pipeline reopened, when we are producing and exporting, those exports need to be within the terms of our contracts. We need to have an understanding that we will be paid in accordance with our contractual terms. One thing that we know at APIKUR, because we have seen publicly, we've also been in many private discussions, is that Prime Minister Masroor Barzani is fighting vigorously to get the pipeline reopened. We have seen in recent days he has talked about the pipeline with leaders in Baghdad, and he's also had conversation in recent weeks with leaders in Turkey as well as the United States. The pipeline is probably the #1 economic issue for the United States as it pertains to Iraq, and also clearly is a top issue for Prime Minister Barzani, KRG leaders, and also Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani. We have seen him make statements, joint statements, after he talked to President Trump's National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, and after Prime Minister Sudani talked to U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Prime Minister Sudani has said that it is important for the pipeline to be reopened. Well, what we have seen from the government of Iraq is sometimes they are making public announcements saying that oil exports will begin within days or within hours. And as you know, everybody knows, the exports have not resumed yet. For us as international oil companies, it is important to have agreements before the exports begin. Because if we begin to put oil into the pipeline without written agreements, what happens when the oil reaches the port and goes off to sale, for sale? When will our companies get paid? How will they get paid? These are complex financial transactions, but there's nothing new, Kakisa, because the government in Baghdad has been making these financial transactions for many years with companies operating in federal Iraq. The KRG and APIKUR member companies have been saying for months that we recognize oil sales must go through SOMO, the Iraqi State Oil Marketing Organization. This is not an issue at all. We're ready for that. We totally agree with that. We have no resistance to that. We have shared concepts for how there could be a agreement about the work of the consultant. We have shared some names of potential consultants with the government, and we think these upcoming meetings should have outcomes. There should be draft documents on paper. We will send representatives to Baghdad for the meetings with the Ministry of Oil and the Kurdistan regional government, and our companies are looking for solutions. The companies have come to Iraqi Kurdistan region since 2005, and over that time, the 8 member companies of APIKUR have made more than $10 billion in investments. But since we have paused since the halt of exports in March of 2023, we have paused the investments. So $400 million that we had planned to improve the production and keep the good flow going, we have had to pause because there has not been as much revenue coming into the company. Yeah, we calculate it this way. Since the halt of exports, there has been about $24 billion lost, and this is lost to all parties. So there's some of the money is lost to the international oil companies, and some, of course, into the treasury of the state of Iraq and the Kurdistan regional government. But most importantly, this is hurting the people.
Right.
This revenue that comes into Iraq and the KRG is used for many resources for people. We know that Iraq needs to improve and increase its ability to generate electricity. This has been a long-term problem. The people from Basra and Wasit, Najaf, they're complaining about electricity. Baghdad, electricity. And KRG Prime Minister Barzani has talked about increasing electricity output in the next 2 years. When there's more money coming in from the sale of oil, there's more money for these type of projects. And America wants Iraq to have a very strong and independent economy. The strength and independence of Iraq's economy will rely on a strong energy sector where the power underneath Iraq is in gas and is in oil, and from that Iraq can really stand up as an independent nation without so much dependence on neighboring countries for electricity or dependence on neighboring countries for gas. Look, I do not have a crystal ball. I am not making predictions, but what I do know is that meetings are important, and those meetings need to have a very clear agenda and outcomes. And if there need to be working groups, experts who are going through draft documents, then they can go through those draft documents. APIKUR companies are very hungry. We are ready. We are eager to get oil back into the pipeline, but we must have agreements. We have to protect our investments. We have to protect our stakeholders. We have to protect our employees, and we have to do what is right. This is international law and international contracts, and we know that when the oil and gas sector in Kurdistan region is strong, there will be more foreign investment coming in for other industries, including agriculture, manufacturing, and technology, because those other international companies will see the success of the oil and gas industry, and there will be confidence that their contracts will be honored.
Thank you very much.
Zor spas, Myles.
Thank you.
Spas.
Search out Ho Hafiz.
Spas Boyash.